want to hear from Benji. How can we promote social and emotional learning in this time of decreased in-person connection? Like Tom was just saying, we're not seeing the teachers and the students we're used to seeing so often. So how can we build on this social and emotional learning, this thing that happens in the context of community, of interconnectedness, of person-to-person interaction in this time where we have decreased in-person interactions?
Well, I would say that in an unprecedented times that we're experiencing now, so I don't necessarily think there's a one size fits all solution for that. I believe now is, it's really on us as the teaching artists to kind of dig into ourselves and become creative in those ways. I am a musician primarily, but one thing I like to focus on in my classes at the Edge is using your creative energy for more than just necessarily your craft. You know what I mean? When it comes to excelling in anything you choose to do, your creative energy shouldn't just be, limited to 12 notes. You know what I mean? It's you really have to use it. And as teaching artists now, we also have to use it. So with me, it's making sure, now more than ever, even though I might not be available in person as much as I used to be, being sure I'm available, making sure I'm checking in on my students. Instead of just wondering how my students doing, I'm asking them how they're doing more than I used to be. Setting up Zoom meetings when possible. I was also doing in-house visits, more one-on-one things. We do have a campus over here in Alapata in downtown Miami, and maybe sometimes when the campus is not being used, I set up a one-on-one or one-on-two kind of lesson down there. um, and I don't want to repeat anything as much as I want to fortify and strengthen what everybody's been saying. But for me, it's very important, as everybody has touched on, that I make sure I'm in the proper space mentally now, because I mean, here at the Edge we do kind of, it's not as much of an academic program as it is a music is therapy program. We deal with a lot of youth who have experienced childhood traumas or traumatic experiences. Um, and so for that, with me personally, I never start a lesson without gauging where my student is in their day, in their week, in their month, in their classes. I want to make sure that they're in the proper space to learn. And if they're not, let's talk about it, you know? Um, and one thing that I'll say, and even with me, it's being aware of where I am. It's not necessarily, so I remember when I first got into education, sometimes I would kind of feel, you know, guilty for not necessarily being in the proper space, instead of doing the work to get to that proper space, even if it means I need to take a little time for myself for the long term benefit of my students and my colleagues.